when I look at you, I don't see your mistakes.
Maybe that's the real punk rock.
You die, I die.
You got life! Cowcut. Synthetic cowcut.
He's flying.
Scooby-Doo.
Are you watching closely?
This is actually the first time that I'm starting off by myself. This is because Deacon's a little late, which is fine. Jordan also could not make it, which is also fine. Oh, can you hear me? Oh shoot, my microphone's over there. I'm professional, y'all. I can do this. All right, microphone's back. We can hear. We are getting ready. We're gonna start. Oh gosh. Wow. Professional, everybody. Okay, so I need to run and grab my hard drive. And while we do that, we are going to watch Jordan's video. So he couldn't make it. He pre-recorded a video just for us. How special. Going over his part of Forge from Chaos. By the way, this is a Forge from Chaos episode. Welcome, everybody. Sorry. I get so caught up doing the live stream that I forget that we're also recording for the episode. So I have a feeling Jordan's section is going to be very visual heavy, and as is mine. But then once Deacon gets on, we'll talk about the story and stuff, and that's more better suited for audio. So let me double check that we're still live. I think we're good. All right, we are going to share this other tab, share the audio. And I think as we get going, hold up. I'm watching my phone live stream to make sure that you guys can see the Jordan part, I guess. All right, so you're gonna see Jordan. Yep. Okay. So I have like a 20-second delay here, but we're gonna watch Jordan's audio. Hopefully you can hear it. He's obviously the audio guy, so he probably mixed it better, but I hope that it's loud enough. Everything's turned up on my end, but I will be back in like 60 seconds. Hopefully I don't miss anything crazy.
Hey y'all, I couldn't attend the live stream live, so I made this video instead where I can show you a bit about how I made the music. The first theme I wrote was the Aranora theme. I wanted it to sound pure and ancient but fantastical, so I used a low drone, the Lydian scale, emphasized the 1st and 5th scale degrees, added some tremolo strings, and a harp playing octave tonics. Shortly after the first instance of the Aranora theme, I snuck in my own motif of 3-5-1-2. For the Serifa theme, I wanted something that sounded opposite to the Aranora theme. So I literally flipped the Aranora theme upside down. Because the Aranora theme is in Lydian, the brightest mode, that puts the Serifa theme in Locrian, which is the darkest. I wanted to implement chaos into this theme, so I randomly generated notes until I had a full 12-tone row, and that's what the harp is playing. The music that plays during the explanation of the followers of the Golden Ascension philosophy is a further exploration of the two parts of the Serifa theme. This time, the 12-tone row is more at the forefront, and now the our theme is played very slowly by the violin section. The moment when the first explosion happens might be my favorite moment in the entire thing. I was inspired by Charles Cornell's video on the Darth Vader hallway scene, where he talks about the fact that the note that the lightsaber emits changes the chord, because like the base of the chord, it changes it from a minor chord to a half diminished chord. It's like super cool. So I basically just used that same exact chord, but with like a downward arpeggio. Immediately following that is the 12-tone rhythm, but with 3-part trumpet chords that constantly move through different tonalities on top of a driving snare rhythm. As Lotkin sees Aranora through the clouds, Seth wanted the Aranora theme to show up again, but like in a distorted way. I opted to keep the theme basically the same, but cloud the Lydian tonality with chords that suggest darker scales. As Lotkin arrives at the temple, and when he sees Kimok, Seth wanted the music to be mournful, so I played a lot of slow minor chords with suspensions in the string section. As Kimok reveals that he has been corrupted by the chaos philosophy, the Sarifa theme and the 12-tone row come back, this time with the Sarifa theme in low strings and the 12-tone row in tremolo 4-part arpeggiated chords. Seth also wanted a boom, 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 boom sound in a shepherd tone, so I included those as well. The shepherd tone I actually developed in a modular synth program called VCV Rack. When the 3 horns sprout from Kimok's head. So I had the trumpets play a tritone and then a minor ninth, which are arguably the 2 most dissonant intervals in 12-tone equal temperament. As Kimok transforms into his monstrous form, I wanted a villain theme that sounded super dissonant, so I utilized some microtonal intervals. I also brought back the Sarifa theme in low brass. As Kimok chases Lotkin, the driving snare comes back, but with disorienting accents. A new minor theme plays in brass and strings as 3-part trumpet chords provide some harmony on the snare accents. The final confrontation is another of my favorite sections in the entire audio drama. I love using a strong 5-1 for dramatic moments. So I base the entire section on that, on like beats 4 and 1, and then including dissonant chords on beats 2 and 3. Halfway through, a snare comes in, occasionally accenting 3 sets of 3/16 notes. As the arrow glances off of Kimok's face, I have all the instruments land on the flat 2 scale degree in suspense before landing on a suspended 1 chord in sort of cautious victory as the arrow lodges itself in Kimok's wing. The song that Lotkin sings at the end is the actual first thing I wrote for this project, but it was before I really knew what the project was and before I had any audio to base music on. I was given the text of the song and some general vibes to write with. I wanted something that sounded ancient, so I wrote something of a strophic chant in Dorian mode, accompanying it with a drone that slowly adds more notes.
Omni folini lefe, iune milanal yefe, iwasa amol neofne, iwomini sesamomi.
So there you go. If you have any questions about the music, I'd be happy to answer them. Just hit me up on Discord. Thank you, Seth and Deacon, for including me in this project and being patient as I completed my part of it. Soli Deo Gloria.
Very nice. Also, I think my screen is the correct direction. I switched it around a couple times. But yeah, I think it looks backwards to me, but okay. So that was very helpful. Thank you, Jordan. I didn't expect you to go that deep into it. Man, you're creative. That's why I love having you as a friend. We were in men's chorus together, and I learned that he composed music after that, or during that, I guess. And so been a key tool in my tool bag very recently. But I appreciate it. I love the 3 horns one. That's about the only thing I got. I mean, I love your explanation of everything else. But the 12-step whatever, just over my head. Not that much of a music nerd. Okay. I am going to show you my behind the scenes. I'm going to do the entire screen. It's going to get probably trippy here for a second. All right. Let me double check. You can see this. I'm still learning live streaming and making sure I'm sharing the right thing. I don't have anywhere near enough stuff for you to know it fully. Okay, looks like we're live there. So I edited this in DaVinci Resolve. I shouldn't have, I'll admit. But it was the thing I was most familiar with. I actually just listened to Ninjas Are Butterflies, and they were talking to Payne something, who makes his own audio dramas, I think, or at least dramatized journalism for podcasts. And he said he did the same thing when he started. But I think it got the job done. It's not terrible. It does have its own section, but I barely used Fairlight. I mostly just played with the levels, and I think when I got their original recording in their original voices, I tried to clean it up a little bit. The narrator Trevor was a little poppy, like his P's. You can still hear some of it, but I tried to be like, let's try to bring those P's down. But we got it worked out. I color coded it because I think that's what the professionals do. Pretty sure. And that also helped for when we were, I exported everything in stems, which means different parts of the project. So it wasn't all one mix. I don't know why I put, because Trevor's a narrator instead of an actor. So the way I did it, I believe pink is, let's listen.
Behold, I die as one who has nothing.
So I don't know if you can hear that. I hope you can. This is, pink is Kimok. I guess we don't need that. I believe blue is Lodkin. Brown is the captain. Yeah, and it's just those three actors. So that just helped me in the later parts where instead of the default green everywhere, it was just a little easier to see where's what and who's who, especially because again, it's not what I would recommend, but I just kind of started throwing things. Usually you'll have a line for each person, but I just started throwing things on the timeline, and that's how, okay. And then when we get to Kimok, there's layered parts, and I just didn't want to have 50 different lines, at least for this first one. I know you should do that, and every professional, whoever watches this, is like, you're crazy. But when I started layering Kimok, I had to do, I think 4 lines is the max here, which we can dive into that really quickly. I don't have a schedule or anything for how we want to approach this. I'm just going at it. So this is what this small section, what I assume is the most layered, sounds like.
In life, I depicted our reality, but now I have become my own reality.
And I really hope you can hear that. I actually should double check that before. As I completed my part of it, how we want to approach this. I'm just going at it. So this is what this small section, what I assume is the most layered, sounds like.
In life,
okay.
I depicted our reality.
Sorry, you guys are getting time lapse or time warp here. Okay, so you can hear it. That's great. So this was actually the youth pastor at our church who I got to play Kimok because he's got such a deep voice. It's really awesome. So this is going to be, I'm going to walk you down each of the 4 layers to hear it.
In life, I depicted our reality, but now I have become my own reality.
So that was one of his takes. And then I said, hey, we're going to do multiple to try and layer them to kind of sound more demonic. Here's the next one.
In life, I depicted our reality, but now I have become my own reality.
And then we'll hear this one.
In life, I depicted our reality, but now I have become my own reality.
One last one.
In life, I depicted our reality, but now I have become my own reality.
I could probably pick away at every single piece of this because I actually am very proud of it. I hear Deacon. I can't see him right now, but I hear him. We're just going through how I made. Yeah, I just heard your chair squeak is all. But I can't see you because I don't have Riverside pulled up anywhere. So there's just multiple parts that I really like sound design. And like I got to use some of that here, especially you can see, I like how the visuals of the editing program work with hearing it and seeing it. You can see up at the top, I would give instructions to Jordan to inspire him. But things like this, like the crossfade. So this version of Zach, it's actually all the same take, but the second one I pitched down. I don't know if it's like a semitone or again, I only need to know what I need to know. Yeah, I pitched it down a semitone and then I crossfaded it so that when we play it back and forth.
I used to be a painter. I painted landscapes and beautiful women. Anything with a beauty that could be captured. My paintings were adored by all who saw them. They became renowned, a thing which I could boast about.
So then it just drops down that pitch slowly instead of cutting. And I just love doing that. Let's go to some sound effects. These are all the sound effects that I used. I mostly used, I don't remember. Epidemic Sounds, ES. But I was trying to go at it with free stuff from YouTube for a while, and I was like, I just don't have the bandwidth or the things that are available on YouTube just won't work with this. So sound effects only sound like this is the explosion part. Whoa. But you can see here, and I should have labeled them better. Boat shaking in dock sound effects. So that sounds like that was them landing. So it's just little things like this. I used to love this stuff, listening to Adventure in Odyssey. I would try and find any behind the scenes stuff that I could. And now I get to like figure out how to layer these things. I think I did brown as ambiance, which I put in a different category. But you can see here, like the explosion. It's just that. And then this one. Whoops, nope, that wasn't single. There's that. There. That. So just a bunch of different things. I didn't ping the Discord. I'm so sorry. I just realized Hondor asked me to do that last week. Because he missed it, but
You can ping them.
I got it. Thank you though. All right. Okay. I'm going to stop going through individual sound effects because I could do that all day. I don't think that's the important part. We could maybe talk about that more in part 2 if people are interested. Here's one thing that I really wanted to do, and I don't know where to find it exactly, but I added things like lion roars to when Kimak was talking, which I thought was really cool. I can't see them from this view, so we'll see if we can hear it. There's a balloon clap. Yep. So here's like a monster breathing. And then what does this say? Troll talking voice. So just these creature sounds. These creature sounds are the things that I really was like, especially when I read Deacon's original story, I was like, I really want to design that part of it, like the otherworldly type of music or type of sounds. Let's see what this one was. So that was really loud and, effects and echoes and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's all I have. I could talk much more details, but I don't need to. So we're going to call it there for just what I'm doing. And Deacon's here. Yay.
How exciting.
So exciting. What'd you say?
So I said, how exciting.
How exciting. Yep.
Very exciting.
Welcome. What are we doing? Oh, Isaac is here, I think, maybe, or at least he's messaging in the Discord. All right. We have a half hour to talk about a lot. I don't know if that's enough time for you. It's also been a while since you've been on. I don't remember the last time you were on. I think we did Magic Revisited or something. No. Well, it's also been like 3 months since I even did this. So, okay. So I don't know if you wrote down a lot of the questions that were in the Discord. Actually, we'll do those later.
I just have the it pulled up. Like,
okay. Well, let's start first by doing like 15 minutes of interview.
Sure.
Well, I actually know kind of what inspired you to start writing it. It was one of our first episodes, or at least something that you had that idea of, and you were like, oh, Seth, you're starting a podcast. I want to talk about this, as well as I'm writing a story about it, or along the same lines. Maybe I'm wrong, but those kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. I think that was about the same time, because I think I was interested in the Christianity and horror angle before you had started the podcast. And then when you started the podcast, I had heard about it, because at that point it had not been established that I was going to be on the podcast. I mean, we were friends. You mentioned that you were looking to do this, and I had an idea. I was like, this is a topic that interests me. I think it's a little controversial, and it might be interesting to hear some different perspectives and opinions on this. And I think at a similar time, I was getting really into like H.P. Lovecraft and some Edgar Allan Poe and some more like classical horror. And I was curious because not that I needed to justify my interest in horror with my worldview. I think to some degree we have to justify the art that we consume with our worldview. But I really wanted to see, okay, so where do these two mediums, where does the art form of horror contrast with Christianity, and where can Christianity and horror see eye to eye to create something coherent that matches, that conveys the Christian worldview through the medium of horror. And so that's what I spent a lot of time thinking about. And I don't remember if we recorded that episode first, and then I eventually wrote the horror Forged from Chaos, or if I had wrote Forged from Chaos and then I had thrown it to you. I don't remember the timeline of which came first, which came second. I think the basic idea of Forged from Chaos for sure was before the podcast. I don't know if I had actually written at the point. I had the idea of I had the basic premise floating around my head for a while before I actually ended up writing it.
Okay, which is kind of what I was getting at. You're thinking about the horror themes and Christianity, and you were thinking about like short story creative things, and so then maybe us recording was like, all right, I'm actually gonna write it, but it doesn't really matter what came first. They were generally the same thought of like, this is where my brain's been at for a while.
Yeah,
and I think we've done
it. It was just the thing that really prompted me to get it done was my college had a short story writing competition. And I was like, okay, I gotta knock this out and get this in for this competition, because why not? I think I got second place or something.
Oh wow, there you go. Question: when we were reviewing the whole project and like what can we change, what do you not like, even with you and with the whole co-host team, you said there were things that you were like, oh, I wish I would have written that differently, because admittedly you wrote it in I think 2022 or at least early 2023, and it's understandable that you would change and you would mature, and I took too long to produce it, and so it makes sense that you would look back on the story part, the earliest part of it, and be like, ugh. I mean, that's thinking about the podcast back then. I was like, yeah, there's a lot I would do differently, but you just got to learn. Or do you have any of those changes that you're like, that's part specifically?
Off the top of my head, I meant to re-listen to the audio drama and like reread it before we went on this podcast, just so it'd be fresher in my mind. Yeah. Off the top of my head, the only thing I like most of the ideas and I like most of the execution. I think the main thing I would have changed, if I could go back and change it, was it's just so, and this is a symptom of my writing. You can hear it in the prose that I write all the time, but it's very wordy and philosophical, which I like. I enjoy writing like these really long-winded explanations for ideas because I find them interesting and I find them fun to write. But like especially Kimmich when he becomes a monster and then he's just it's the Incredibles bit of, you sly dog, you got me monologuing, but like he's just monologuing and he monologues so much and he's like, oh, philosophy, oh, beauty in this world and pain, and I'm like, okay, the other thing is, I'm not calling your audience stupid by any means, but it's the type of thing where like especially for the audience I was writing the short story for these judges or whatever for this contest, I was like, I got these really deep, intricate themes. There's all this symbolism that I'm writing into the narrative. And it's kind of a balance as an artist, right? Where it's like, if you have these deeper themes and meanings and symbolism and a deeper message you're trying to convey, how much of that message can you trust the audience to pick up on, and how much of that do you like? Obviously, you want the audience to be able to put it together themselves and then come to their own conclusions. But how much of it can you? How much do you have to hold their hand to get them to where you want to be?
For sure.
And so it was a thing where I really like all the ideas, what the villain was trying to say, but maybe I could have used fewer words and left more inferences and let the audience put it together. The main concern has always been, especially me as a reader in like high school or middle school, never would have read into the deeper meanings because you assume there isn't one. And if a listener or a reader goes into a story without expecting there to be a deeper meaning or symbolism, and it's a very surface level story, they're not going to dig into it. And so they're going to leave a whole nother layer. So it's like, how much do you want to try to feed them that deeper layer, and how much do you just let them figure?
For sure. I mean, yeah, the part of me is like, how else are you going to get Kimok to express that dark side perspective that was kind of the driving force of the whole story? I think somebody asked, maybe we'll get to that question. Like somebody asked why there wasn't more dialogue between Loken and Kimok, and that's probably something you would change to fix that monologuing problem. But also, like, I don't know, maybe I'm not creative enough for the writing part of it. Maybe I'm like, I thought it was fine. I thought it was like, he can be a supervillain monologuing. It's kind of fits just to be like, I need to tell you why I'm right. I need to tell you this realization that I had. And yes, it's evil. Yes, it's cliched, but it's not out of place, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. The problem I would have with that, and I think probably the reason I didn't, is in my mind at least, it does not make any sense for those two to have a. I don't think it makes sense for Loken to try to reason with him once he's reached the state. Like he is running for his like. He's terrified out of his mind. He just saw someone he knew as a friend turn into this demonic monster thing and is like chasing like in my mind it doesn't make any sense for those two to have a. It might make sense in my head, and I guess my head's the only one that really matters here, is that the demon Satan, right, when he fell, you see it in Paradise Lost, especially. Satan's charismatic in Paradise Lost, and he says is better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. And it's a paraphrase of the quote. That's essentially what he says. And so he's like, oh, it's better to be free and not in heaven than to be serving God be free in hell than serve God in heaven. And I think that there's a lot of, to put it like bluntly into modern terms, I think demons probably cope a lot, like hard cope, where they have to justify their actions. Because that's what happens when we're tempted to do things, is we try to justify them. Is, oh, I'm doing this bad thing, but it's for a good reason, or I'm only doing it once, or this little white lie, like it's not going to catch me. You know, I think that realistically, a demon would have a lot of coping and a lot of, well, I'm actually right. Like, this is actually so much better. And so I think it makes sense for him to have to mentally and verbally process and justify why what he's doing is actually good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that's great. I think, I don't know. I think a lot. I was going to show sorry, I was just an aside. I was looking for the Blender file because I made the artwork too. Just thinking about all the behind the scenes parts we have to cover, and I actually don't have it. It might be on my other laptop, but I can't get that right now. And I hope it's not gone forever. I did make it for real, just so you guys know. Everything here, no AI. We're proud of that. But I think I lost that file for now. It was pretty fun to actually go through the iterations. That's what I could do maybe. Deacon, talk about something else. I'm going to find some pictures.
The another thing that I was gonna maybe bring up and mention is that something else that was kind of limited because it was a short story, but something that inspired it was I am also fascinated by cults. And so we talk about the city burning, and he shows up and the city's like up in flames and is burning. And I didn't really touch on that in the short story, but in the story, in the background, the world building for that story, there essentially was a cult that destroyed the city through a combination of just ritualistic violence and fire, arson, I guess. They serve a god or another worldly being from the H.P. Lovecraft universe that's called Hastur, the Crawling Chaos. And I wrote a D&D one-shot around Hastur and his cult. And so that was actually some of the inspiration for this short story, is this crawling chaos starts burning a city, and part of that embracing of chaos, this crawling chaos is trying to just like infect the world in chaos. And so the cultists of this crawling chaos, so to speak, sow the seeds of chaos. And so they've convinced this artist to embrace chaos and destruction, and then we get to see the result of him doing that, which is his unholy transformation, shall we say. But again, I think I maybe I had a throwaway line in there mentioning their holy symbol, their cult symbol on like a wall. I think I maybe put that in there. And maybe I had some lines about voices screaming, but I think mostly I didn't go into that because, again, short story, I had a length constraint I was working with for the story, and that would have added a lot more if you wanted to do that part justice.
For sure. Really quick, I'm going to run through the artwork. Inception. So this was actually really fun for me. The whole thing was fun. The narrowing in on what we actually wanted. This was one of my first takes on the project. I think this was just the idea that I had. Even if we were to hand it off to another artist, I was going to be like, this is what I want. And you can see Kimok is probably the big thing. I used the same models. Like I spent time making sure the models looked fine, including Kimok and Lokton. But the feedback I got from this was it was very busy and very orange. So I was like, okay, I need to touch up the colors. I need to fix how it looks like with how you can still see fire and stuff like that. But I think this is okay. Like it's not bad. The next one that we had, I tried to make it less orange, more yellow. I made Lokton smaller. I don't exactly remember my reasoning, except that it was a little bit just less distracting and making Kimok look bigger. The problem was we didn't have any depth. I think I tried to mess with some volumetrics to show some fog and show how far or how big Kimok was. I think we wanted him to be like 7 foot tall. But he still kind of looks like he's as big as the building was the problem with this one. And fun fact, you can always see the star in the background. Then we went with this one when Zach suggested, hey, we probably shouldn't just show the monster. It's just kind of fun to be like more think about it or to imagine it a little bit. This one I didn't really like. I just was trying to see how the shadows would work, make sure I could do it before I dove into that. This one was our second to last one. And we were still working on some color stuff, the font, and then people thought that the wings looked too boring, which makes sense, but they were just the same wings that I got when I thought I was using Kimok when we were seeing Kimok. Now he's just a shadow and it's not as engaging. And then the final version was this. You can see his arms, his wings are more bat-like, and the fire is a little more even. I think it works really well. But that's all for that. let's answer some questions. Hondor showed up, which is great. Late nap. Cool.
Well, I think the
sorry.
most important one that we need to answer, if I was forced at gunpoint to add a cute, marketable character to the story, what are you picking? What will they contribute to the story? So here's
like
the
that
thing: is
question.
I don't think you would have to hold me to have me do this. I think so the story came after. The story came after when I was thinking about horror. But the setting of this white city of stone, this dwarven city, came much earlier. And one of the things that this dwarven culture has is they domesticated griffins. And so they use them as they can fly on them like a horse, like a steed. And they use them as like essentially dogs. And so I think the temple would have a mascot griffin. And the other thing that griffins are is they are lion and they're eagle, just like how you see a lot of symbolism in Dante's Inferno of the like centaurs and minotaurs representing Christ, how they're both God and man. They have that duality. I think that you would have the griffins symbolize chaos and order, but also, well, yeah, chaos and order, but then the embrace two sides within one being of chaos and order, but then those living in harmony, like the idea of freedom and order living in one being. And I think in the end, said cute, marketable griffin would have to die. What was the? I was. Oh, do you know Wendigoon? Do you watch Wendigoon at all?
Yeah, I've heard of him. I guess I don't watch him, but
Okay. Wendigoon and Meat Canyon have a podcast where they read creepypastas and horror stories. I really like it. Don't know if I can recommend it, but I like it. They had the ending of one of their stories. They were critiquing this story and they were talking about how it's more acceptable in movies to kill a child on screen than to kill the dog. The dogs always come out in the end of the story because to us, dogs are for some reason untouchable. Not for me personally. I'm not a dog person really. I'm not a cat person either. But I don't. To me, it's an animal. If it dies, it dies. But for a lot of people, dogs are untouchable in media, and like you didn't kill the dog, even in horror movies. Like the dog doesn't make it out because to us, the dog represents like innocence, and a lot of movies treat dogs as too sacred to kill. In the story, the dog makes it out of the story, and they're like, he should have died because the entire point of the story was this loss of innocence. And if you have a loss of innocence in your story, you should be able to lose innocence. You should not be holding on to this little, because that defeats the entire point of the story. So within this, I would say that this being that is composed of the two elements of chaos and order would end up having to die to chaos to be completely consumed. So that's how that would add to the story.
I like that because then you also get the marketing character, a little plush doll or something, and then be like, "Oh, it died." All right, we have like 7 minutes. I'm gonna stick to that. Live chat gets priority in case somebody types a question there, but I'm gonna read Elijah's question, or a summary of his. I would say one is, do you plan on writing more in this world? Which I feel like would maybe be a quick answer. And then after you answer that, what was your guiding star while writing this story? Was there an image, feeling, or moment in the story that you specifically wanted to make happen in Forge from Chaos? So first, are you going to write more from this? Like, could we do a sequel?
I would. I'd think about it. I actually have a few ideas of things I'd like to write. It's a matter of finding time. And they might be plugged into this world, would be more likely, which would not change anything from the listener's point of view, would be actually plucking this setting or this city and this story out of this setting and putting into a new one, just because generally the world that it was originally made for pretty much got scrapped, and I'm on a different world building project. This one should be easy enough to port over to a different one. So I think short answer is sure.
Can I interject? Or maybe you're done.
Yeah.
You were kind of taking a Tolkien approach, not with everything, but you wrote a language. That's why the final song is in a different language, which I believe I put the translation in the description for people to actually read what it means. But that was something that caught my eyes. You were taking the Tolkien approach of like, I wrote a language for them to then use in the story.
Yeah, and for anyone who cares, it's not that good. Like, I had a lot of ideas, and some of the ideas within the language I think manifested. I think the Celestial language I wrote, maybe it works. I think in hindsight, kind of stupid, but it's kind of an is what it is. Like, I barely know any Spanish. I took a year of high school Spanish, and I took 1 semester of biblical Greek. That's the extent of my, and I wasn't particularly good at Greek or Spanish. So my dexterity when it comes to linguistics was reading some Reddit articles and how to build language blog posts. And I mean, I went for it. I tried, and I think there's some cool aspects that came out of it, but they're all right.
Yeah, it does the job, and I think it sounds like a real language. Troy Berger, who played Loken, had a problem where he's not a singer, and we had to throw a new language at him, so he was singing in a different language. So 2 things he was not comfortable with, and it was just really funny to see him. Not funny. It was like, I want you to get this right, but also he went and walked around our church. He was like, just trying to figure it out. I had the bell notification for the channel,
which
but
is
I didn't even
cool. I think that's it's really just to briefly touch on it. So the first song I think is Dwarvish, and then it's Dwarvish or Islandish, and then the last one is in Celestial. And just to kind of put into perspective why I think this is kind of dumb behind the scenes thing, I don't want to spend the entire time trashing on my own story, but I wrote it so basically there's a word conveys an idea, and then you add suffixes to say whether it's verbed, it becomes a verb, or if it's an adjective, or if it's a noun, or like whatever. And so, because when I was writing the poetry, it's real easy to have everything rhyme if the structure of each line of the song goes noun, adverb, verb, subject. And then if you keep that rhythm, since they all have the same suffix ending, you have that 1 syllable rhyme every time because they all have the same suffix. Unlike English, where you have the variety where to match the ending syllable up within the rhyming pattern, obviously that takes a little more comfortability because you have to have a variety of words. This one, it was like I could say whatever the frick I wanted because as long as I kept that order for the line, every line would rhyme reliably. And so it was a little bit of an easy way out, but you know, it's also weird because like I didn't have a vocabulary and then write poetry out of it. I was writing the vocabulary as needed, so I could make any word I wanted to rhyme. It's like okay, I want to say this. Okay, well the word for that actually rhymes with this other word that I was using in the poem.
Yeah, but
so
like I said, it sounds good. It sounds complete, and the fact that you put that effort into it still is good instead of just like gibberish, I guess. We literally have 2 minutes. So I really want to hear your answer to what was your guiding star when writing the story? Was there an image, feeling, or moment in the story that you wanted to specifically make happen? Which I guess is two different questions, but it's like, what did you start with or always have in mind that then expounded into whatever it was, like a 10-page story and half hour audio drama?
Yeah. It all goes back to unironically Genesis. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth, and in the beginning, the spirit of the water, or spirit, hovers over the waters of the deep. But the word waters there can translate to chaos. And the idea of there's this chaos that has the same meaning as the word waters. And for some reason, that concept was very fascinating to me. I had a teacher in high school, one of my science teachers, who challenged me that chaos was sin. Like, chaos was sinful. Like, entropy is the result of the fallen world, which I'm not entirely positive whether or not I fully buy that, but that's a longer conversation. But I had this idea that entropy and that is sin, and it's wrong. So as a result, I had this idea of, okay, so what does it mean for me, a person who doesn't like schedules and doesn't like being told what to do? Like, how does that, if I say I like chaos, what does that really mean? And then I had this, I thought was really poetic quote that is in the beginning of the story, where the boat captain says, some translate chaos into the word waters. That's because waters open in its jaw and consume those who fall into its mouth. We can consume water in small doses. However, if it consumes us, we become a part of it. We haven't pictures. We like to observe it but once you are truly inside of it, it is no longer a thing of beauty, but a thing to fear and flee. And it's just that idea of, like, we like chaos when we can control chaos. And it's like, oh, I get to do what I want, and I have this freedom to do it. But, like, through unbridled chaos, there's a reason God set order to the world and told man to have dominion over the world and to have order over it. And if we get truly consumed by chaos, that is a world without order. God made us in his image to put the world into order and made the world out of chaos. If we revert to the chaotic state, that is a world without God, which is also the argument for why chaos is sin, is because if God put the world into order and you take the order out of it, you no longer have God. And so it's that idea of, if you truly embrace chaos, you literally become a demon, right? Because you are in a world without, there is no God. And so that idea of, we like it in small doses, but just like water, you can sip water. If you fall into water, into the ocean, it's a scary place to be in, and it will consume you completely.
I mean, that's the whole title of the story. I think when I read that for the first time, I was like, it was enough to draw me in. That's what the title is supposed to do. But it also defines the themes. It even brings a little bit of clarity to the story once you hear the story, and then you also think about the title and how that affects how you came into it, I guess. But I think they go hand in hand, and you do well with that.
We're a little over time, but that's the opening bit about the he's witnessing the celestial event, which is another core aspect that was early on in development. Was there's these primordial beings who are represented by the stars, and there's a black hole which represents chaos, because one of these primordial beings is chaos, and it's trying to consume the bright star, the iron star. But it turns out in the end, he thought the entire sky had been blotted out by the wings of Kimok. The stars, the order, the bright lights don't shine through, but at the end of the day, God, order, the star, it's still there. It has not been consumed by this black hole of chaos.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for that. You're hopefully going to be available on Discord for any further questions, maybe some that were already asked and we didn't get to. I think that there's a lot, at least, that you can pull from the story. And again, I'm keeping restrictions on the live stream for my sake, for my family's sake. But there's a lot there. I think you added a lot of depth to it, regardless of how it was communicated through monologues or whatever. And there probably is places for the story to go if you wanted to. Not that you need to. I don't think it needs it, and I don't think you should do it. But it's definitely a world that could be expounded on. Can this Kimok's transformation be reverted? Things like that could be fun to talk about, but not really necessarily right now. But ask Deacon questions on Discord. Ask me questions on Discord. We're always available there. Thank you guys for listening or watching. Make sure you follow and listen to Forge from Chaos and share it with a friend. Because honestly, I'm going to be honest. Honestly. For the amount of work we put into it, especially Jordan, I don't know that it got that many views. And it's not saying that views equate to success, but like I really want people to hear it, not only for like all the work we put into it, but just for the enjoyment and the message behind it. So please share it with a friend. Share this podcast with a friend. I'll probably put this podcast in the show notes of the actual audio drama so that people can listen to this afterwards. But I think we covered all our bases pretty shallowly, but evenly. Anyways, see you on Discord. Until next week, know that you're loved. God bless. No eternal outro, Deacon. No eternal outro this time.
No.